sound.
Hello, and welcome to the 8 o'clock news. I'm your anchorman, Jonathan Gibson.
And I'm your anchorwoman, Shelby Russell.
Tonight we're going to be covering the major headlines of the day. We're also going to be covering your weekly weather forecast, sports, and we also have a special investigative on-scene reporter that is going to give you a really good look into what's really going on in our community. Tonight we're also going to be looking into a massive free riding riot that's taking place on social media. It seems everyone in protest of the past election has taken to Facebook to writing things that really should be going on in their journals.
Has free riding started to take over Funkville? Will this lead to more physical riots? Let's find out.
With Facebook users again on the rise, the desire for people to express themselves is higher than ever. Free writing is a technique where one writes for a set amount of time without any concern for their grammar, punctuation, or any other issues. Free writing is used by writers of all experience levels, as it can help alleviate writer's block and other writing issues. It can also help work through any kind of ideas that you may have for what you're writing about. A common form of this that a lot of people use is the personal journal. This technique is used by writing teachers to help their students collect their thoughts on any particular topic. This in return helps with future in the writing when it takes for a more formal approach. This also helps with a lot of people when they have to write research papers or something that they really don't want to write about. Unlike brainstorming, which consists directly of writing ideas down, free writing involves forming complete sentences of ideas that come to your exact mind. Within college academia, this helps the writer develop a passion about writing, giving them free rein to write about anything they so desire. Sounds all fine and dandy, right? Well, it is when each person respects the other that it actually works. But now that we see on social media is everyone has the overwhelming desire to prove the other person wrong, and it has forced other people to go way above and beyond and to go with what they're actually saying, so it's causing a lot of actual problems nowadays.
One of the ways that this epidemic is so successful and is causing strife is through the use of rhetoric. Rhetoric is the study of how writers and speakers use words to influence an audience. A rhetorical analysis is an essay that breaks a work of nonfiction into parts and then explains how the parts work together to create a certain effect, whether to persuade, entertain, or to inform. You can also conduct a rhetorical analysis of primarily visual arguments, such as cartoons, advertisements, or an oral performance, such as a speech.
And here's Chandler, again, live on another investigative report.
Today, I'm standing here in Funkville Square, where we have an Aristotle's triangle forming, in perfect balance between voice, purpose, and audience. Things are getting a little crazy around here as the free riding protest continues. The source of the commotion is coming to light, as it seems to be coming from a symptom, Aristotle's triangle. This is a representation of the voice of my speech, to choose between whether I want my speech to be formal or informal. This over here is a representation of the purpose of my speech. It's where I decide if I want my speech to be informative, or informational, or argumentative. And lastly, here, the library is a representation of the audience of my speech, where I have to consider the audience and how I want to portray my speech.
And here's Chase with sports.
Welcome to Sports Today with Chase. We kicked the semester off learning about the major do's and don'ts to really ace the course. The most valuable lesson among these was concerning the topic of plagiarism. The importance of correctly defending your outside sources was stressed every step of the race. Plagiarism has been a huge problem in the past in the writing league. Most coaches just tell you don't plagiarize over and over and assume you know what that means. Coach Jen, however, really emphasized the meaning of plagiarism and how to avoid it this season. Plagiarism is stealing an opposing team's ideas or plays and using them as your own. Just because you change one route or one word in a sentence doesn't mean you're in the clear for plagiarizing. The major key to factoring out plagiarism is correctly citing your sources. Majority of papers constructed in the course required a works cited page. Not only were points deducted for not having a bibliography, the final score cannot be determined with the absence of a works cited page. Although that seems like a major penalty, it really stressed the importance of giving credit to your sources and how to do it correctly. Another great thing about Coach Jen is she didn't expect her players to know how to instantly cite sources perfectly. She provided several examples and practices and also reviewed each draft to help each player individually understand them and improve.
And now we cut to Teague with the weather.
Today will be mostly sunny and warm, and therefore you will have an excellent day. What's that? I'm being told that I've just committed a logical fallacy known as non sequitur. Non sequitur is the tendency of people to assume that because two things are related, that they are in fact proportional. I assumed that because people tend to have better days on sunny days, that you would have a better day today because it is sunny. Now, on Twitter it seems that most people are saying that it's going to rain today, so I'm going to say that the weather today will be rainy. Oh, I've committed another fallacy. In fact, that was the bandwagon fallacy, in which people perpetuate a belief based on the fact that most people believe something. Global warming, for example. At a certain point, everyone thought that global warming was false, and therefore everyone perpetuated the belief that it was false because everyone believed it. You see, fallacies are commonly committed by people on television, especially people on the news, although not always the weatherman. It's important to recognize fallacies and familiarize yourself with their use so that you can recognize them and counter them in logical rhetoric. It's easy to be fooled by a fallacy in conversation, but if you know how to recognize it and counter it, you can work towards better rhetoric.
One of the main factors being used in this free riding riot is Aristotle's theory of emotion of appeals, known as logos, pathos, and ethos. When using logos within an argument, you can tend to see symptoms of high cognition and severe rational responses. The next stage of this rioting rhetoric is known as ethos. This is when you can see someone that they think is known as reliable, trustworthy, and they think they are of competency. This stage is when the patient sways, and a lot of people who have no real ideals are a lot of seen as going past for that person and following someone who has nothing to actually follow. They should be seen as approached with high caution. The final stage is what we are referring to as pathos. This is when the host is able to convey emotional responses by evoking fear, empathy, anger, and is very persuasive. High caution is advised.
You know, Jonathan, this reminds me a lot of Mark Twain's The Lowest Animal. His use of rhetoric really brings out what he's trying to convey, and I feel like we see that today within the recent election results. Twain discusses the difference between the lowest animal and the highest animal. In this case, he's referring to the ranking of the food chain between animals and humans. Our comparison here is to compare the usage of free riding within the population of our great nation. Just as Twain says, man is only a patriot. He sets himself apart from his country under his own flag and sneers at other nations, and keeps multiple uninformed assassins on hand at a heavy expense to grab slices of other people's countries. He washes the blood of his hands and works for the universal brotherhood of man. The lowest, which I feel would be in comparison to those taking to social media for their platform, often engage in one-on-one disagreements or a Facebook post in this case. The highest are those that disagree or agree with the results and are working together to remain unified in the nation. And now we're going to cut to Chandler, who is on scene at Funkville University, who is standing amidst the riots.
College students around the world are turning to social media in order to provide their own textual analysis of the recent elections. This is a wonderful occurrence, especially after such a close presidential race. Just like two people's opinions are never the same, no two textual analyses are ever the same. These college students are providing a textual analysis of a collection of artifacts including political newscasts and advertisements. We can take these analyses and see that there is a wide range of how people interpret artifacts. This can help us better understand that where the artifacts come from and the culture behind them. Now back to you guys again.
And here is Chase again with sports.
Education plays a huge role in the success of athletes across the nation. To make it to the major riding league, you must graduate everything from kindergarten to college. Whether they realize it or not, players gain knowledge through the good and bad experiences throughout their career. When players reflect on their career, they often point back to their roots and learning stages. Everyone has heard it before. Practice makes perfect. You recognize your success and gain knowledge from your failures throughout your educational experiences. Being a pro athlete doesn't happen overnight. Learning the punctuation and correct citations of a linebacker is acquired over time. Now back to you guys.
And here's Teague again with more weather.
It's still sunny out, so talking about the weather would be pointless. Let's talk about satire instead. In fact, satire figures perfectly into what you're watching. It's possible this may even be satire. But what do I know? I'm just the incompetent weatherman with great hair and 50 IQ on a good day. That right there was satire. I acted like I was portraying something earnestly, but in a way that would highlight the problems with the topic at hand. You see, satire is an effective tool for portraying issues in a way that people find agreeable. If you come out and state the problems, people will simply assume that you're being contrarian. But on the other hand, if you show people the issues with a given topic in a way that they use their own cognition to understand, they appreciate the issues much better. Through this, satire becomes an effective tool for good and convincing rhetoric, and understanding satire becomes essential to understanding the motives behind its use.
Thank you for tuning in again. I was your anchorman, Jonathan Gibson.
And I'm your anchorwoman, Shelby Russell.
Have a great night, dudes.